Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to a fresh new episode of 51 Stories of Emotional Wellbeing with Emotional Ability Resources. I always say, have an issue, give ear to it. So today I have a courageous young lady, Saanvi Rungta, who's a freshman at Wellesley College. So before much ado, thank you, Saanvi, for joining us for the session today. And this courageous young lady is going to talk to us about her own mental health journey and how she experiences emotional well-being. So over to you, Saanvi. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm just a girl lost in this big world, trying to figure out what I could do to make a difference and just be happy, I guess. So I love the sciences, but I also love the arts, and I like to do things that, make me happy.
So how old are you, Saanvi?
Right now, I'm 17, going on 18.
So what are some of the challenges that you have faced of late?
So honestly, I'd say definitely regarding stress and anxiety, that's always looming. But in the past, I've had a lot of history with depression, like because I went to from a place where my life was ideal to a place where I was down in the dumps in a very short amount of time. So yeah, and just been learning from there.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey. Can you tell me a little bit more about this place where you felt everything was ideal to everything being down in the dumps? Which city were you in? Were there any major transitions that happened around that time?
Of course. So around this time, it was during my teenage year, just coming into my teenage years. I had shifted from the city where I was born and raised in Calcutta, and my mom, my little sister, and I moved to the city of Mumbai. So in Calcutta, I was used to a very warm community. I'd been in my school since nursery, so I knew everybody like the back of my hand. I had a very stable friends group, and I didn't really need to prove myself because I was already proven. Everybody knew my name, and it was a very comfortable place to be in. Home life was amazing. I had my family all around me. But upon moving to Mumbai, going from an all-girls school to a co-educational school, totally new social dynamic, which I hadn't ever experienced before, because the kids in Mumbai were just so much more different than in Calcutta. And after a point, I remember just looking at myself in the mirror in Mumbai and totally reevaluating everything about my identity. And I didn't even know who I was anymore, like what I liked, what I didn't like. It felt as if I was in this deep dark ocean, floating, not knowing anywhere about what I am.
That must have really been tough. And thank you, courageous young lady, to share, your deepest feelings. Because a lot of times, what I have seen in my 15 years as a therapist, what really brings us down is just this hesitancy to share about what we are going through. And that's what makes the darkness much bigger. So, how did you get out of it? Was there any person who helped you? What was going through your mind?
So actually, it's in my case, I only got help when I hit rock bottom, and my what started off as an identity crisis spiraled down to a deep depression, to even a lot of suicidal idealism. And I remember just being too terrified to tell anybody, and the only thing I wanted to do was die. And I think it was the day when I wrote my suicide note, the day of my eighth grade math exam. I don't know what happened. I have to thank my friend who I had the somehow I told her, and she forced me to tell my mom, and I told my mom, and it was terrifying telling her. It's never going to be easy to tell your parent that you're facing a mental health issue, much less something as serious as suicidal ideation. But I think that moment, that day, I still remember it so vividly. It changed everything. It actually was a day that catalyzed my getting better much faster. And without my mom's help, without my friends' support, I wouldn't be able to get up at all.
Can you tell me a little bit more about it, that day, since it's so vivid in your mind right now?
I remember feeling incredibly worthless. In class 7, I was always known as a smart kid, the girl who got the good grades. That's what I was always championed around as, and the fact that I switched not only a school, a city, but also a curriculum had some incredibly drastic effects as to my performance in my high school. And this was a time where my self-worth was very much based on the marks and the academics I got. I didn't get it for myself. I get it because I thought the only validation I would get for myself was through that. And I remember math, a subject that I love, became a subject that I absolutely hated. And this exam, I blanked out. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. It was as if there was a mist around everything. And I just remember feeling incredibly upset. And this feeling of worthlessness that had once been a seed had grown up into almost like the roots of a tree and like strangling me all around. And there was nothing more than what I wanted to do but die. That's like I would anyway, I just wanted to die. So after this, I remember just writing out my feeling and just writing out how much I wanted to die, and even literally writing out a suicide note. And my friend kind of caught wind of the fact that I was not doing so well. Her name's Nandini, and she literally saved my life because she didn't approach the situation with urgency or fear or panic, but like the calm way in which she kind of talked to me made me feel a lot more level headed and helped me kind of gather the courage to tell my mom. And of course, telling my mom was just one of the most difficult things I've ever had to do. And I'm very fortunate to have a mother who was just so understanding despite how dire and terrifying the situation for a mother must be. But I just remember sitting on the floor, printing something out. She came home and she just hugged me from the back tightly. And I just like completely started crying and melted in her arms because I hadn't really been transparent about my mental health with anybody, much less what I was truly feeling.
That's really, really brave, And I love the fact that your parent was there for you because, like you rightly said, as children, we try to parent our parents. We feel let's uh, not burden them further. So, can I ask you, what was your reason for not reaching out to your mom earlier? Because I understand I'm asking deeply personal questions, and but
I don't mind that at all.
I do feel your story would help a lot of young people, who probably are going through mental health symptoms, but they don't know who to reach out to, how to approach a parent, and what stops us from approaching our parents, where we can probably ask for candy, we can ask for a movie that we want to go for. But when it comes to talking about our deepest struggles, what stopped you from reaching out?
I think just as you very rightly like put in a nutshell, it's we parent our parents a lot. And honestly, the thing is, personally, I just cared a lot more about putting my mom down and about affecting her mood and her being than my well-being. And this was at a time where I was at the mindset that as like this is totally I built this up by myself, but you kind of think that okay, I have to be happy, and anything but being happy is not something that's ideal because it gets the people around me sad. So almost like you don't allow yourself to feel negative emotions, and you don't realize that part of a prescription of growing up, being a parent, and even being a child is just being transparent. And it's okay to feel bad, it's okay to feel like absolute trash, and you could communicate with your parents, and it's their responsibility as a parent to be with you, take care of you throughout hail and storm. And it's your responsibility as a child to, you know, be go through with it. And I feel like that was a very big factor and something that I had to unlearn a lot after therapy. That instead of trying to protect, or in my mind, creating the illusion that I needed to protect her, which would eventually be worse for our relationships and our mental health and well-being, because obviously my mom, she's my mom, she'll know when I'm down, and she'll obviously be aggravated if I'm not honest with my feelings. And even me, through bottling it up, it's not going to help anybody. You just realize by having more transparent communication, especially regarding mental health, is it's absolutely a necessity. And it's something I had to unlearn, but it's so worth it, so worth it.
I'm so happy to hear that. And I hope this motivates a lot of other viewers, whether their children are struggling or whether it's a child themselves, a student. Help is always available. I think this perfectionism attitude that we have towards ourselves, and so beautifully you put it, you thought you were your grades. And while rock bottom taught you that you are much, much more than your grades, because you are there, your grades are there. And I think that is such a beautiful metamorphosis. I know it's been really, really painful, but the smile on your face today and the journey ahead, I think, stands testimony to that fact. Now, Saanvi, can you tell me what was your experience in therapy like? Because a lot of people feel that, oh, I'm going to therapy. What a shameful thing to do. How can I be so weak? Or there are a lot of other stigmatizing statements which I wouldn't get through. So I want you to practically tell everybody watching us today, what was your experience of therapy like?
Okay, so everybody has an image of therapy where you go and you complain about your, like, again, the word of the use, complain. Okay, why is complaining bad? But you complain about your problems, and then you're given advice, and it's almost portrayed as an incredibly self-piteous setup, but it's anything but that. My experience going to therapy was actually, I'm so sorry about
No
that.
problem. No
um
problem.
was incredibly enlightening, almost, because it kind of taught me how to explore myself and understand myself much better, because a therapist is much less about giving you advice than actually helping you understand what your true feelings are. And many times we go through experiences, something as little as a little incident when you were 7 and 6, and that has an impact to completely change the way you think at the age of maybe 2024, or even late into your 40s. Like, that's something I see that my parents are kind of realizing as they're going to therapy. And it's more understanding your behaviors, your outlooks, understanding that you have built up biases, as every human being has done in their life, towards certain things, and understand why you may feel that way. And in essence, just be more self-aware about your emotions and feelings and know the root. And this, in essence, makes you feel a lot better, because not only do you understand the why and a how, you also understand the why and how to cope with these negative emotions, because therapy isn't as much about suppressing feelings such as anger, sadness. It's more about learning how to cope with these emotions in a more healthy way for yourself and the others around you. And I think that's one of the biggest things that therapy, it's why therapy is just so needed for everybody, but it's really misconstrued in the way it's represented in many forms.
That is so well put, and I'm so happy to hear that you got an effective therapist, because a lot of
Yes.
times, especially in India, we feel therapy is about giving advice. There are a lot of paraprofessionals who say they'll fix up your depression or give you advice. So I'm so happy you found that safe venting space, where you could be who you are and also explore your truest feelings further. And then, go to the depth of your potential and keep growing, as literally like peeling the layers of an onion, where the sky is the limit. So
I'm also very grateful. I really lucked out, because I know that the scene of therapy in India is like,
mhm,
it can be incredibly dodgy at times, especially with the pseudo therapists, just as you said, claiming to know,
mhm.
even shaming their own patients for having feelings that actually makes them feel a lot worse about going to therapy. And I'm sure that only builds to the stigma that's already present.
So I would like to ask you another question. You mentioned that, while in therapy, people discover early childhood experiences, how an incident of when you were 6 years old or 7 years old left an undeniable mark. That, of course,
Yeah.
we therapists know, but I would love to hear if there's a personal story that you would like to share with everybody out there.
So thinking back, I've always hated conflicts and, you know, just confrontation in general a lot. And, surprisingly enough, to therapy, I dug up this very old memory of mine in class 5 and 6 in class. Sorry, not class 5 and 6. I mean, when I was 5 and 6 in class one. Okay, something so buried at the deep back of my head, but kind of explains a lot. So I remember in class one, I was just a little girl, okay, and we used to have to go down to our break times. And I didn't really have any friends because I wasn't really the talkative kind. I was much more reserved. I used to love reading books. So I would just stay genuinely a lot more quiet. And in class two, I met this girl and I was really impressed by her because, oh my God, she's older than me. She's so cool. But like a little into our friendship, she started bullying me a lot in a lot of demeaning ways. She would take off my new shoe. Like, I remember going and playing in the garden, and while I was in the slide, she would physically stop me and she would take off my brand new white shoes and throw them far into the field, into the muddy kichar, like the wet soil, so that I would have to walk all the way back to class without my shoes, and my socks and feet totally dirty. And she'd really be incredibly rude to me, horrible to me. Once she tried to lock me into the bathroom. So I remember hating school because of that, being absolutely terrified. Now I'm glad that I could work it out, because fortunately I had an elder sister in the same school, and somehow she found out and she confronted her. But because of that incident, I feel like it led to me being a lot more wary and being a lot more awkward in confrontation, because I still could never had the strength to look her in the eyes, and I was almost scared of people. Like, I think that memory kind of taught me how to be more scared, and thus hate talking to people a lot more. So that's one example of a memory I or something I experienced at a formative age, I'd say, that did genuinely impact my neural pathways and impacted the way I reacted to a lot of things.
Thank you for sharing that. So, today, after therapy, how is it that you feel you have evolved as a person? Have there been any changes?
I think I've definitely changed a lot. And, changing isn't really a bad thing, because I feel like more than changed, I think I've grown. I feel like I could be a lot more reflective. I think I could cope with a lot more things in a much better way. I feel like if the eighth grade me could not be able to handle the amount as 12th grade me can, even half, but it was because of her that I had the strength, and I kind of learned that I need to grow myself, and I'm proud that I could even get out of that phase. So definitely learning how to cope with things better, and just being a lot more mature and calm about situations. uh, in the beginning I would hate myself for feeling certain ways, and those emotions, they would completely overwhelm me, they would take control of me. But today I still feel a lot of the same emotions, like like sadness, anger, but I've learned this art of just letting my emotion be, almost accepting it and letting it wash over me, and just giving it myself time, so that after it washes over me, I'm completely fine again. That's an ability I never had, but I feel like it's helped me a lot.
So, I love this, that you found the strength to develop your emotional ability. So, what are some of the emotional ability resources that you use on a daily basis today?
So, in terms of resources, of course, I'm fortunate enough to be able to go to therapy and an amazing therapist. And another resource I use is writing. I really believe in the art of journaling, and I know it's not for everybody. It's something that's highly personalized to me, but having a space where I could be myself and reflect, and even gratitude. I'd say that even though it's not as tangible as other resources, as you could put it, I think it's a concept that I keep going back to, just ground myself back into reality, because it's not as simple as just being grateful for the thing we have, the privilege we're blessed with, but it's more about appreciating the little things in life, appreciating that there are a million different ways our paths could have unfolded, and the fact that it has like this in its way is incredibly special. And the other resource for me is definitely music and art. I think I find a lot of peace and calm in that, so it helps me a lot.
That was really, really beautiful. Now, is there any person who has inspired you, or someone who you feel epitomizes emotional well being for you?
So honestly, I can't say anybody epitomizes emotional well-being, because I feel like everybody around me is on this spectacular journey to understand themselves better. So instead of them being a pinnacle of mental health, well-being, and emotional perfection, I'd like to think about my mom and my friend Nandini, both of them who were instrumental in helping me feel better. But my mom, she is well into her 40s, but still that doesn't stop her from learning and growing and understanding mental health and unlearning some of the old toxic things that were taught to her from a young age. And I'm incredibly proud of her for that. And I think I'm incredibly privileged to have a mother like her, because I understand that in many situations parents aren't as understanding and even open about their own mental health, much less their children. So I'm very grateful to have her in my life, because she inspires me to keep working on myself and motivates me to keep going even in my slumps. And very similarly, my friend Nandini, I mean, she's been my companion almost throughout my journey, always been there, like a pillar. And I really look up to her a lot. She's some very dear friend to me.
Fantastic. So, if you had to describe Sanvi in one word, what word would you pick up for yourself?
Mm, I think I'd say the word bold, because I'm known, like, compared to a very demure, docile, incredibly unassertive eighth grade me. I think right now, as a personality, I'm much more outspoken, a lot more out there, and a lot more unapologetically myself, which I really like. So I'd say bold.
I think I would agree too. After listening to your story, I realized that you have used the character strength of courage to really play a very big part in your life. Really, what hasn't killed you has made you stronger. And that's such a beautiful transformation. And I always say that a diamond is nothing but coal under pressure. So we all are lumps of coal in some form. But when we go through difficulties and challenges, if we can navigate them, our best facet comes forward. And we become unimaginable. And like you rightly said, from a demure little girl to bold Sanvi, it's been a beautiful journey of transition. And I can definitely see your courage, because to come and to speak to everyone so openly is a gift that very few of us are blessed with. So thank you so much for joining me today. And
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much. Thank you so much. And honestly, if I could say something, I just think this initiative is amazing, because I feel like for everybody else who are going through the struggles, oh, undoubtedly this is such an amazing resource. I mean, I wish I had something like this when I was going through my tough times. And I want to commend you. This is absolutely amazing. And thank you so much for having me on here. It's just been an honor to speak with you.
Thank you. Actually, this is why I started off with this because, especially in the last 2, 3 years, I started seeing that when people would reach out for therapy, whether online sessions or group sessions or even face to face, the one thing that they weren't doing was working on themselves on a daily basis. Or there was so much self doubt that they always felt that, oh God, everything is a disorder. And my take is emotional well being is a zone of well-being, which is a daily practice, like you rightly said, daily journaling, daily meditation, daily acknowledging your true feelings, which need not always be positive, but they need to be real, so that the entire spectrum of feelings is felt. And like we brush our teeth daily, we can take care of our mental health daily. So whether it's reading inspiring books, whether it's seeing the people around us or their stories of courage, which is what makes life real for us. So thank you very much, Saanvi, and thank you
Thank you
all
so
our
much.
viewers there.